It was an unusually chilly autumn morning in Palm Beach, Florida. Former President Donald Trump was being driven back to Mar-a-Lago after a meeting with local business leaders. His motorcade took an unexpected detour due to road construction, forcing the vehicles to navigate through a less prestigious area of the city. Trump, gazing absently through the tinted windows of his limousine, was mentally rehearsing his speech for an upcoming fundraiser when something caught his eye. In the parking lot of a budget motel, a middle-aged man was carefully folding blankets in the back seat of a weathered Honda Civic. There was something vaguely familiar about him, the way he moved, his profile. Trump found himself asking his driver to slow down. "Sir?" questioned his security detail, surprised by the request. "That man over there," Trump said, pointing toward the car. "I know him from somewhere." As the limousine slowed, Trump's eyes widened in recognition. "That's Michael Benson," he said with certainty. "He worked on my campaign in 2016. Good guy, very loyal, smart as a whip." There was genuine confusion in his voice. What's he doing? Living out of a car? Before his security team could object, Trump had instructed the driver to pull over. This was not in the day's itinerary, and the head of his security detail immediately began protesting about safety protocols and schedules. 2 minutes, Trump insisted, already opening his door. Just 2 minutes. Michael Benson didn't notice the black limousine at first. He was too focused on organizing his meager possessions, a suit carefully hung to prevent wrinkles, a laptop, and several folders of documents. His life had taken a dramatic turn since his days working on Trump's campaign. After the 2016 victory, he had secured a mid-level position at a lobbying firm thanks to his connections. For a while, things were good, so good that he had stretched himself thin financially, buying a house he could barely afford and taking on debt to maintain appearances among his new colleagues. Then came the scandal. A former client accused the firm of promising access they couldn't deliver. Though Michael wasn't directly involved, the firm needed scapegoats. As one of the newer employees with political connections, he was let go. The severance was minimal, and the taint of the scandal made finding comparable work impossible. His savings evaporated within months. Then his wife left. The house was foreclosed, and now, at 52, he was living in his car, still wearing his expensive watches and designer clothes to interviews for jobs that never materialized. "Michael?" The familiar voice startled him, and when he turned to see Donald Trump standing there, without the usual crowd of handlers and media, he nearly dropped the coffee cup he was holding. "Mr. President," he stammered, instinctively straightening his posture, despite wearing jeans and a faded polo shirt. Embarrassment washed over him as he realized what Trump was seeing. His fall from grace laid bare in the form of a car doubling as living quarters. Trump, for his part, seemed genuinely taken aback. "What happened, Michael? Last I heard, you were doing great things at Westmore Partners." The directness of the question broke through any pretense Michael might have maintained. "Life happened, sir. The firm let me go during the Harriman scandal. It wasn't my fault, but—" He shrugged, the gesture conveying the helplessness of his situation. Trump's eyes narrowed slightly, not in judgment, but in assessment. "How long have you been living like this?" "About 4 months now," Michael admitted. "I've had some interviews, but nothing's panned out. The political climate hasn't been kind to anyone associated with—" He trailed off, not wanting to implicate Trump in his misfortune. "With me," Trump finished for him, nodding slowly. "I know how it goes. They make you pay for your loyalty." There was a rare moment of reflective understanding on the former president's face. What happened next would later be reported by numerous witnesses from the motel and nearby shops, each account adding to a story that would captivate social media and news outlets for days to come. Trump turned to his security detail and said something that made them look at each other in confusion. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call, walking a few paces away from Michael. The conversation was brief but animated, with Trump gesturing emphatically. When he returned, he handed Michael a business card with a name and number handwritten on the back. Call this number in an hour. It's David Miller at Trump International in Palm Beach. He's expecting you. There's a position that just opened up, Director of Community Relations. It pays $150,000 a year to start. Michael stared at the card in disbelief. Mr. President, I don't know what to say. Say nothing, Trump cut him off. You were loyal when it mattered. I don't forget that. Then he added something that the witnesses nearby would repeat in their social media posts. The measure of a society isn't how it treats its highest citizens, but how it treats those who have fallen on hard times. I've been down before. I've been counted out. Then I became President of the United States. Before Michael could gather his thoughts, Trump addressed another concern. There's a suite available at the hotel until you get back on your feet. It's covered. And Michael, he added, shave and get a haircut before you show up. You look terrible. The characteristic bluntness drew a surprised laugh from Michael. With that, Trump returned to his waiting limousine, leaving Michael standing in the parking lot stunned, holding a business card that would change the trajectory of his life. What in Tias? Trump didn't realize was that one of the motel residents had been filming the entire encounter on her phone. By that evening, the video had gone viral, showing a side of the former president rarely captured by mainstream media, unscripted, compassionate, and loyal to those who had been loyal to him. The story might have ended there, a momentary glimpse of humanity in the often brutal world of politics. But it didn't. 2 weeks later, Michael Benson, now clean-shaven and dressed in a new suit, gave an interview to a local Florida news station. He had indeed started his new position at Trump International, and the hotel suite had given him the stability he needed to restart his life. I was at rock bottom, he told the reporter. I never expected Donald Trump to remember me, let alone help me. But he did, and he didn't do it for the cameras. He didn't know anyone was filming. He just saw someone who had worked hard for him and was struggling, and he stepped in. The interview might have generated a day's worth of feel-good news coverage. But what happened next expanded the story's impact beyond anything Michael or Trump could have anticipated. During the interview, Michael mentioned something in passing. The hardest part of being homeless wasn't the physical discomfort. It was the invisibility, how people look right through you. If someone like me, educated, experienced, previously successful, could end up living in my car, it can happen to anyone. Those words struck a chord with viewers. The hashtag #OurInvisibility challenge began trending, with people sharing stories of how they, or someone they knew, had experienced sudden financial catastrophe despite playing by all the rules. Trump, never. One to miss an opportunity to amplify positive coverage, retweeted the interview with his own comment. Michael Benson is what America is all about. Resilience. Sometimes good people need a hand up, not a handout. Proud to have him on the Trumpy. Team again! The story gained further momentum when other former employees came forward with their own accounts of how Trump had helped them during difficult times. Stories that had never made headlines. A former housekeeper revealed how Trump had paid for her son's college education after learning she was working 3 jobs to save for his tuition. A former security guard shared how Trump had covered his wife's medical bills when their insurance denied a critical treatment. These stories painted a more complex picture of a man often portrayed in stark terms by media on both sides of the political spectrum. Perhaps the most surprising development came 3 months later, when Trump announced a new initiative at a press conference with Michael Benson standing beside him. The Second Chance Foundation would provide job training, temporary housing, and placement services specifically targeting middle-aged and older workers who had experienced career devastation. Nobody knows more about comebacks than me, Trump declared with his characteristic confidence. And now we're going to help other Americans write their own comeback stories. The foundation, funded primarily by private donations from Trump's business associates, set an ambitious goal of helping 10,000 displaced workers find meaningful employment within its first year. Political analysts debated Trump's motivations, as they always did. Critics suggested it was merely image rehabilitation or groundwork for another political campaign. Supporters pointed to a consistent pattern of private generosity that rarely made headlines. Michael Benson, for his part, became the face of the foundation, bringing first-hand understanding to its mission. The man who had once organized his life from the back seat of a Honda Civic now had an office with a view of the Atlantic Ocean and a purpose that transcended his own redemption. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to find your true calling, he told a reporter a year later, when the foundation announced it had already helped over 4,000 people find employment. And sometimes it takes someone believing in you when you've stopped believing in yourself. The chance encounter in that motel parking lot hadn't just changed one man's life. It had sparked a movement that changed thousands more, revealing an unexpected side of a polarizing figure, and reminding Americans that compassion sometimes comes from the most surprising sources. And it all began because a motorcade took an unplanned detour, and a former president happened to look out his window at exactly the right moment. Have you ever experienced a life-changing encounter with someone unexpected? Or perhaps you were the person who changed someone else's life without even realizing it? Share your story in the comments below. If you were moved by this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to Impact Stories for more powerful real-life moments that remind us of our shared humanity. We publish new stories every week that will inspire you, move you, and perhaps change how you see the world around you. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Our upcoming story about Jeff Bezos and a forgotten teacher might be our most emotional one yet. Thank you for watching until the end. Remember, the most meaningful connections often happen when we least expect them, and a single moment of kindness can create ripples that change countless lives. See you in our next Impact Story.